Well, hello my friends, welcome back to my channel. We're back for another truck car book chat video for you. Okay, so today's video is one that I am still doing 2022 end of year content. I'm sorry if that is if the time for that has passed, but I still have some things I want to talk about, I want to reflect on. And one of the videos I've really wanted to do is some of the series that I either started, discovered, or finished in 2022 that I loved. So this is not all of them. These are ones that overall were just really enjoyable series that I think are pretty bingeable, that have great characters, that are just a really good fun time. So some of these I didn't finish, and I'll let you know if I did or did not finish it. So the first one that I want to talk about is a good old classic, and it is the Castles Ever After series by Tessa Dare. So the first book in this series, Romancing the Duke, is probably one of my favorite Tessa Dare books of all time. I feel like this is such a classic historical romance, Beauty and the Beast retelling type of story. I mean, it's not, he doesn't turn into a beast, but it's like those historical romance, Beauty and the Beast types of vibes. This was just lighthearted, but it also had a lot of good depth of emotion. The build up to the relationship was fantastic. The chemistry was wonderful. I loved the whole setup of this. I just feel like this is Tessa Dare at her finest, and I just loved it so much. So I loved it so much that I was like, okay, I'm going to finish this series. So then I read books 2 and 3, and I didn't love those quite as much. I still really enjoyed them. I gave them both 4 stars, and I still have the last book in this series to finish, so I haven't quite finished this series yet, but I really enjoyed it. I think this is a standout Tessa Dare series. It's a classic for good reason. It was a ton of fun, and it gave me everything I was looking for in a historical romance. So my favorite in the series was definitely Romancing the Duke, but the other 2 were great also. Okay, so the next series I want to talk about is the Fae Guardian series, and this is a fantasy romance, almost has like paranormal romance set in a dystopian world. I read this series at the beginning of 2022 and was immediately impressed by the author's writing, her creativity, her romances, her world building. I just felt like this series was just really, really pretty good. I loved the first book. I gave it 5 stars. The second book I didn't love quite as much, but I still really enjoyed it. But the thing that I really particularly like about this series is that it feels like a very fresh spin on Fae, and also in like a paranormal romance type of setting. I like that this has fated mates in it. I really like how the dystopian world even happened and how the Fae are involved in that. I liked everything about it. Like, I really like the world building. I think her writing is really solid. I think her romances are great for the most part. She has really good chemistry, and I just felt like this series was just like a breath of fresh air, and I enjoyed it immensely. So very impressed with this author's work, and definitely want to finish the series. I haven't finished it yet. She did just have a new book come out, which I'm very excited to read. Okay, so now this next series is a trilogy, so each book in the series ends on a cliffhanger. You do have to get to the final book to get any resolution to your romance, but this is a series, it's called the Cityscape series by Jessica Hawkins. This is a love triangle romance, and it was recommended to me by Cheyenne. She also loves love triangles. Like, I am a sucker for a love triangle. I think they're so entertaining and just very fun. This series was absolutely addicting. Like, I had to know what was going to happen with these characters. I immediately got sucked into the world, sucked into the romance, the taboo nature of it because she is married. I found it very entertaining. Now, this is not a favorite series of mine. I didn't rate the last 2 books in this very highly at all. I think the first book was my favorite. I gave it 4 stars, and I think that's where the setup of the romance and why she was even interested in this other man, and all of her like background history and who this other man was, like all of that was just really intriguing. But it definitely like kind of nosedived towards the end for me, so I didn't love the last 2 books in this. But this is a series that just has that very soapy feel, that very high drama, can't look away type of feel, which is entertaining, honestly. Like, I find those entertaining. They're not necessarily ever going to be my favorite books or the books that stick with me or books that I'm going to like gush about, but it's something that is just like a really addicting form of media that is a good time. So I liked this series a lot. Okay, so now this series is very good, and I feel like nobody really talks about it, and I have mentioned it in a few of my videos, and I'm going to talk about it again right now, and it is In the Heart of a Valentine series. This is a series of contemporary romances, all centering around a group of brothers. These are black romances, and the heroes in this series are so swoony. They are definitely like millionaire, playboy type of heroes who find the one woman. That's how the two that I've read in the series were, who find the one woman who they all of a sudden are like, her, I need to be with her forever. I'm going to change my playboy ways, and then they just like shower her with love and devotion, and it's just very, very fun. I really like the chemistry in these books. I think the writing is really good and solid, very readable. I think they're very romantic and swoony. There definitely is a very large portion of these books that is wish fulfillment, because the heroes in here are just like so incredibly wealthy, and they treat the women so well, but like, ain't nothing wrong with that, right? They're just very fun, very comforting. I just found them to be very enjoyable, and I would recommend them, and I think more people should read them. Now, this next series is a trilogy, and it is the Tangled Lies series by Pam Godwin. So, this is a series that I recommended to Cheyenne. We did a video where we recommended love triangle romances to one another, and this was one I recommended to her, and she recommended the Cityscape affair to me. I love Pam Godwin. I'm a huge fan of hers. I think that this is the one series of hers that I've read that is not very dark. Like, I don't think this is dark at all. I think it's taboo, with maybe some darker elements, but if you're used to a really dark Pam Godwin, that's not what you're going to get here. You're going to get a pretty angsty romance. You're going to get a lot of taboo, because it's, you know, love triangle again, and old lovers who suddenly come back into life, and it's just like a very good time in that way. I really enjoyed this. I thought it was entertaining as all get out. I liked the surprising twist of, you know, she met this man, she was in love with him, and then she believes that he dies, and then she meets this other man, and he sort of like sweeps her off her feet, and oh wait, the man she loved first actually isn't dead, and here he is again. Like, it was just emotional, angsty goodness. Okay, so now we are back to another historical romance series. This is another one of just an old classic for good reason, that I read and gave every single book in this series 5 stars. I loved it. I actually feel like I do have one more book in this series to finish, so I'm not completely finished with it yet. It is the Scoundrels of St. James series by Lorraine Heath. This woman is a masterful writer, and I think that, again, this series shows some of her very best work. I love the series so much. I believe this is set in Victorian times, because it is sort of a spin on Oliver Twist, and every character in this book is sort of like a nod to a character that's in Oliver Twist, which I love so much. I'm a huge fan of Oliver Twist and Charles Dickens in general, so it was very fun to see that sort of take in this historical romance books here. So you have that sort of as like a very loose prototype for each of the characters and some of what happens in the plot, but as is typical Lorraine Heath fashion, she like builds and expands on that and gives you a deeply satisfying romance with each book, and great character development. And also, each one of these books in this series has really great plotting. Some of it is surprising, a lot of it is a little bit action paced. So I think that overall this series is excellent, not only for the romances, which are fantastic and swoony and just deliciously wonderful, but also the plots in here are really, really solid. They're very engaging. There's a little bit of mystery in each of them, and I just loved them and adored them, and I cannot recommend this series enough. It was so freaking good. This was definitely one of the highlights of my historical romance reading year, and I feel like I haven't talked about them enough, and part of that is because I feel like everybody who reads historical romance knows about this series, but if by some chance you did know of it and you just haven't read it yet, here's me telling you, they are very well worth the read. This series was amazing. I loved it so freaking much. Now, this series is one that also falls into the category of soapy. It's the Magnolia Park series. I have only read the first 2 books in this, and there are since been, well, there was just the 4th book released, so I have 2 books to read to get caught up. This is high drama. I would say this is pretty high angst, and it is also extremely soapy and addicting. But I would also say that this is an elevated soapy type of read, because the writing in here is very unique. At times it's very beautiful. I do feel like, and I will say this to my dying day, this author tends to over-metaphor way too often. But I still really enjoy these. I really like the writing style. I find the characters very engaging, and even though a lot of them just do the dumbest things, and I'm like, why are you such an idiot? I can't stop reading these books. I just love them. I find them addicting as all heck. This was a very fun series. I would not approach this at all for a swoony, satisfying romance, at least in my opinion. This is not swoony, this is not satisfying, but this is high drama, soapy, addicting, cannot look away from the train wreck type of thing, with some really interesting, at times very beautiful writing. Okay, so now this next series is one I have talked an awful lot about, but I haven't really talked much about the second book in the series. So this is the New Haven series. The first book is Restore Me, one of my all-time favorite books. I love it so much. I have recommended it literally to everyone on the planet. I want everyone to read it. I think this author is so talented and she has so much potential. The whole series is based around friends and family members, so this is like interconnected type of standalones, but the interesting thing is that Restore Me is a complete romance where you get one couple and they're happily ever after in one book. Revive Me has 3 parts, so part 1 and part 2 are out, but they both end on cliffhangers. I've only read Revive Me part 1. I want to read Revive Me part 2, but I am kind of waiting to hear when Revive Me part 3 will come out. But I just love this author's writing. I think she's a beautiful writer. I really love how she builds her romances. To me, they're deeply emotional and very layered and multifaceted. I think her steam is really excellent also. And I really like how she gives you so much insight into the character's thought process. That's something that I particularly love about her books. So if you like that type of thing where you get a really in-depth look into the characters' minds, even as they're doing things that maybe you wish they wouldn't, I would definitely recommend this. I mean, the first book, Dom, the hero in there, is probably tied for best book boyfriend with Grip by Kennedy Ryan, and if you know how much I love Grip, that is saying something right there. But I love this series. I think this author is so talented, and I cannot wait to see what else she writes. Okay, and the last series on my list is probably on everybody else's list for 2022, and I know y'all are probably tired of hearing everybody talk about it, but I'm going to bring it up again. And it's the Chestnut Spring series by Elsie Silver. So I am caught up with the series. It is not finished. Flawless and Heartless are the only ones that are out. Powerless is coming out this year. And these are small town romances, cowboys, cowgirls. It's just so... These books are so good. I can't even really stop to tell you anything other than they're just good, you know? There's nothing about these books that is disappointing or off-putting to me. I find them just so comforting and enjoyable, and even when you are at the angsty moment of like the breakup in the relationship, it still feels like it's going to have a good resolution, and I kind of feel like that's a hard thing to find in romance in a way that doesn't feel boring, personally, because that's the moment that usually gets people engaged, is how are they going to break up and how are they going to get back together. But along with that, you get a good amount of like angst and uncertainty, and that can be uncomfortable depending on how the author writes it. And I think Elsie Silver nails it every time, where the conflict feels very understandable, very almost like inevitable, but also like they just handle the resolution of it so well, and so you're never really left feeling with that like pit in your stomach of, my babies, how are they gonna get back together again, you know? It's very, very good. I love the series so much. Swoony, funny, charming, engaging, steamy, like you truly can't go wrong with this series. And this, I mean, it's no surprise that I'm caught up on this because I just love them so much. So alright, my friends, this was just a little short video talking about some of my favorite series that I read in 2022. I hope y'all enjoyed it. Please let me know what your favorite series that you read last year was. I would love to know. And I'll see y'all in my next video.